United under Mike Ashley. The current club debt is £144 million, which has been growing. Money spent on players since 2007. It looks like a large number, £354 million, but the average annual net spend for Newcastle is just £2.6 million, and you can see there a £21 million profit in the 2018 summer transfer window. And down the bottom there, the £17 million paid for Michael Owen is still the club's record signing. So look, let's just be totally clear at the very beginning here. Some people are critical of Newcastle fans. They think they have unrealistic expectations. Right? Newcastle fans are not expecting to compete with the likes of Manchester City to win the Premier League and to spend 60, 70 million pounds on players. What they want is to equip a manager like Rafa Benitez with the tools to do the job that they know that he can do, and to build on a 10th place finish last season, which looks like it's just not happening at the moment.
Yeah, and I think they just feel like he doesn't love the club to the point where he's prepared to invest that money and take the club to the next level. You have to be careful here, because the players at the club are doing the best they possibly can, and I feel that the fans, they fully appreciate that, but they also look at this team, and I think about past Newcastle teams within the Premier League and think, there's always been a few stars within that side. Granted, we spoke about, Newcastle, they've not won anything. So, you could argue, well, why would he plough all that money in? But they've also had, players like Ginola, Shearer, Ferdinand, Asprilla.
They had the world's most expensive striker at one time.
Well, this is what I'm saying. And even in my era, they had top players. It was just like, and when you look at them now, it's not nice viewing, I don't think. It doesn't look like a club that's getting what I feel it deserves. I feel like, Mike, he's running that club as a business, and that sounds like a stupid statement, but I think you need to do more with that money when with it coming in. I feel like he's literally like, whatever penny comes in, I'm not prepared to go that extra bit to bring in those players that can take that club back to where it needs to be. So that's why he's having problems, and it's pretty. I don't know. It's pretty sorry. I feel sorry for the fans personally when I see what I see, having played for that football club.
I understand the fans, their concerns and their worried and their anguish, because they're a passionate bunch up there. They're well known for that. But I mean, when this team got relegated from the Premier League, he spent big when they went down to get them back up. He spent money to get them back up into the Premier League. I just see it, if you look at it from his point of view, he's put some money into to buy the club. He's put money in again when they got relegated, got them back up, and then he's thinking to himself, I'm actually in the Premier League again. I've gotten back into the Premier League, and I'm fighting against almost countries, really, who have invested in clubs. I mean, massive consortiums who've got much more than me. And so I actually want to get out now. I've gotten back to where into the Premier League.
But if you want to get out, then get out. If you want to sell your house, you can sell your house.
Yeah, but it's not as easy as that. It's not as black and white. If it was that easy to do that, it would have been done. He's obviously trying to get out. It seems from what I don't know what's happened behind closed doors, but from reading between the lines in the media, he's tried to sell the club. Once they've got back into the Premier League, he's fought to get them back there, done that, and thinking, right, I've done my bit here. I want to give it to someone who's got a bit more money and more resources. And I think, in that sense, I can understand him, but also I can understand the anguish of the fans.
Isn't the club more valuable if he has a great relationship with the fans, if they're feeling confident about the club? We're not saying go and spend huge money, but go and spend enough so they can build on a top 10 finish last season.
It's all right saying that when it ain't your money. It's not your money.
Yeah, but it's the club's money.
Yeah, but it's his money who's backing it. It's his money who's spending the money, isn't it?
Yeah, but it is his money, but it's also money that Newcastle United are taking in. They made over £120 million in prize money last season.
Yeah, when
sold
you
£40 million worth of players in the summer and spent 20.
Money, they spent money when they went down. They sold Jorginho Wijnaldum and they sold Sissoko. And I think they recouped, £70 million within those two deals. So I wouldn't say all of that money went into them within. I know they spent big in the championship, but it was money that they recouped. And yes, and once they got back up, I think at that point he was well within his rights to kind of go, let me see how this plays out. But once Rafa's got them to 10th last year, that's the point then where he's gone, right, you're my man, I'm going to back you in whatever you want. Not obviously stupid, but you should be able to go out and get that. And he's not back, Rafa, and I think that's where the issue is.
Well, tell me what you think of this then, Rio. This is the Premier League net spend of Brighton, Huddersfield and Newcastle since promotion to the Premier League. You said they're competing against countries. Well, Brighton and Huddersfield are not countries. They are Premier League sides, right? Brighton 110 million, Huddersfield 78 million. Newcastle, since they came back to the Premier League, a net spend of £1 million.
Yeah, it doesn't make good reading that at all. Who would have said 3-4 years ago that Brighton and Huddersfield would have been spending in the regions of £100 million, and Newcastle would have been spending £1 million? Yeah, that's fine, but I'm just playing devil's advocate, and I'm looking at it from Mike Ashley's point of view. I don't want to spend no more money. What's criminal with that?
In Rio's defence, those numbers look terrible. But you look at the Huddersfield squad and you look at the Brighton squad, and you wouldn't say it's miles away from that Newcastle squad.
Exactly.
So therefore, Mike Ashley's argument would, at that point, be, well, I've already got that.
Is that because he's got a brilliant manager, though? And if you give those managers the tools...
Yes.
I think, though, if they finish 10th last year, regardless of what they spend this year, how high are they actually going to go? They're not going to get into that top 6, top 7 and break into that. So what's...
Yeah, but that's on the basis of Rafa Benitez, though.
Why would you not get into the top 7? Burnley did it. Leicester won the league 3 seasons ago. You can't just write teams off and say you're not going to improve.
I honestly, if I was a centre forward or whatever, you're looking around and the way that Newcastle play, why would you go there? I know you can say that they have to play that way because of the manager they've got, but he's been playing like that since 2005. That's the way he plays. He's defensive, so they don't attract players. They're not an attractive club to go to, and I think obviously financially they probably don't pay the wages and stuff. But in football in terms, they're not an attractive team to watch. So. As a top player, if you've got more choices, you'll go somewhere else.
How does it feel for you watching them at the moment? Because I think they were 3rd, 4th and 5th in the 3 seasons that you were there.
Yeah.
You know, I remember the great entertainers. We've already mentioned the likes of David Ginola. You know, they were a great asset to the Premier League.
I'm always trying to work out how Newcastle are what they are now. Again, I have to be careful because I have to respect these players that are at this football club. But Newcastle United is a very big football club. It's as simple as that. And all of a sudden, Newcastle have turned into survivors, which I don't get, because I don't like talking about the past too much, to be honest with you. But to go from being playing Champions League football and finish and having the players that were at that football club to all of a sudden all of that just going out of the door and being left with what is now out there and just surviving in the Premier League, I don't get how that's happened. I really don't. And it's unfortunately the powers that be that I think have allowed the club to be where it is right now.
And, there's talk about in the press today Rafa and Mike Ashley not being on speaking terms and only going through Lee Charnley to speak to each other, and Rafa having to talk in his press conference about inviting the owner to come to the training ground. The fans forum, I think they may have only met once last season with the club. They were due to meet last week. It was cancelled at 24 hours notice. You'll know from your time at United, when everyone pulls in the same direction, there's genuine unity between the owners and the manager and the players and the fans. You can do amazing things with football clubs that represents an amazing city in this country.
Yeah, in any business, having that dialogue, having that good communication from the top to the bottom and then to the fans is going to be great for the club, and it creates a good harmony within the club. But there are times when it doesn't happen. And listen, you can't sit here and look at Rafa Benitez and not sympathise with what he's seeing being spent around the league. And he's having to sit there with his purse strings being strapped up and not being able to spend. But that's the situation he's in, and he has to deal with that at a football club. And listen, I don't think there's many better people who deal with this situation than him. He's a student of the game. He's someone who looks at all the finer details and will try and find a way, whether the fans like it or not, and he'll stick to his principles and what they are. And listen, when Newcastle signed him as a manager, they knew what they were getting. They didn't expect to be getting someone like Pep Guardiola, who's going to play expansive, different type of genius type football. This guy had a particular way, as Danny said, since 2005 that we all knew what it was. He was at Liverpool with great players in that team. Still played the same way. 2 blocks of 4 and a striker and a guy behind him feeding the striker, Torres and Gerrard. That was the way he played. He was very, very, very resolute in the way he played.
Fans love him, by the way.
Yeah, they do.
It's not negative. The fans love him.
You just wonder where it ends, though. He's out of contract at the end of this season. As things stand,
Newcastle have to keep him. They have to keep him.
Well, if they have to keep him, then they have to back him, right?
Correct.
That seems to be the way it goes.
Is it your money, though?
No,
if
it's
your
not
money, it'd be different.
It's not my money. It's not my money. Absolutely. I wish it was my money. If I had the money, I'd let them spend the money. I'd be like, Rafa, come round for dinner at my mansion.
You won't spend your own money.
I just want to read out a few really quick messages because the Newcastle fans, as ever, have really been brilliant on this. There's loads of messages. Paul says, as a fan of 45 years, this is the most toxic and frustrating time under an owner. Ashley is sucking the life out of this club. Adam Huss. Mike Ashley is ruining our club. Our manager and players are doing everything they can, but with a few more additions, we could have got a result out of the last few games. Evan Milburn. We don't want Champions League football. level. We want to be in the top half and build on what we had last season. I just can't see it with Ashley. I love Rafa and we need him, but I can't see him in charge this time next year. And Ms SK, Ashley needs to go. We don't expect to compete with the big boys. However, we cannot justify making profits year on year. Benitez is sticking around on the hope that Ashley sells up. And I think it's important to point out we haven't just picked negative Mike Ashley comments and read them out on air, but the comments have been that kind of a comment when we spoke earlier on social media and asked people to get in touch. It is pretty much wholly negative about the way that Newcastle are heading at the moment, and they currently sit in the bottom three. What the future holds, we shall wait and see.
They have had hard games though. Look at their fixtures.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.